Good morning everyone, welcome to another Hatton's live stream where we're showing you some of the best UK locomotives available on the market today, a little bit of the history behind them and how to include one in your collection as well. Today we're taking a look at Dapol's new release of the Class 21 and 29 diesel locomotives. We've got two classes for one today, so a bit of a double special, but you'll see how the history of these locomotives really is entwined. As ever, all the details are available on the link on the description if you'd like to order one of these and more as well. But I will be covering some of the finer details of how the model's produced, some of the tech specs as well. And of course, if you have any questions regarding the models or the real life locomotives, do put them in the chat and I'll answer them throughout the stream as well. So the Class 21 came about, which one of the prototype locomotives developed in the late 1950s when a lot of new diesel locomotives were being provided by many different manufacturers for British Railways. This locomotive was built by the North British Locomotive Company in Glasgow. There was 10 provided in 1958 and altogether 58 were provided by 1960. They were based in the south of England. They actually were based in Ipswich and depots nearer to London as well for working suburban passenger trains. However, unfortunately, they didn't prove to be too reliable. They were pretty unreliable compared to the other locomotives that were being trialled, such as the Sulzer Class 24s, and I believe the Baby Deltics were coming in around then as well on the suburban services. They were actually so unreliable, a lot of them were put into store in Cambridgeshire, and that got the attention of the newspapers at the time, and it didn't go down too well that these brand new diesel locomotives were being put into store, but they found a second home. Some of those original locomotives had gone straight to the north of Scotland to work services up there, which were being handled by elderly steam locomotives. So even though they were quite unreliable, they were still pretty revolutionary compared. And the rest of the class joined them in the early 1960s. All 58 of them headed up to Scotland, some of them based at Glasgow's Eastfield depot and some of them based in Aberdeen. So you could see them working throughout the central belt in Scotland and up into the northeast of Scotland also. They were still, unfortunately, quite unreliable, but they did now have the bonus of being closer to North British's works in Glasgow, where they were originally built. So any warranty repairs, any spares requirements made available, it was a lot easier to get them across Glasgow than it was from the depots in London right up to the top of the country. Little bit of bad news, though. North British Locomotives went into receivership and shut down in 1962, only 4 years after the locomotives were built. So suddenly, spares were a little bit more hard to come by. Although they did have 58 locomotives, they were not performing too well still, really, and British Rail looked for some solutions to get a little bit more life out of the fleet. One of the locomotives was re-engined as a trial with a Paxman Ventura power unit replacing its MAN power unit. That was in 1963, and the reliability was improved somewhat actually. It really did help out the locomotives. It gave them a little bit more power as well. They had 1,350 horsepower, so it really did help out the class. And the first one was actually recategorised as a new locomotive, the Class 29. I believe there was quite a few of those done. I think it was about 20 or so, with the rest of the Class 21 sent to scrap in the late 1960s. Unfortunately, the design was still quite non-standard, especially with more reliable and numerous designs coming onto the network, with locomotives such as the Class 37, the Class 26 and the Class 27 really making an appearance in Scotland with those reliable designs, and of course the spares were still available as well. So it wasn't really a long time left for the Class 21 or the 29, and the last ones were withdrawn in 1971. There's none still around today. Diesel preservation wasn't really heard of in the early 1970s, so it's not possible to see a Class 21 or a 29 in real life. But that's a fantastic opportunity to get a model onto your layout because it's something you can't see in the real world anymore. So if you want to see a Class 21 or a 29, you've got to see them in model form. And Dapol's model's been out a few months now. It came out towards the start of early 2020. And it came out first of the Class 21, and then into the rebuilt Class 29. And there's 4 variations of both available, covering some of the different liveries and the conditions that the class carried, as you can see here. And they're all available to order right now for £129.15. But let's give you a closer look. I will show you a livery that some of you have already spotted. I believe Ben there has already taken a look at this one, the two-tone green. Well, Ben, it's the one I've got ready for you on my camera. And I'll give that a spin. It's quite an unusual livery, this, actually. A lot of diesel locomotives did carry the two-tone green livery, but this particular style with the white stripe between only seemed to take place on the Class 29. So it is a little bit of a strange one. But again, if you want an unusual livery on your layout, but you model that late 1960s era, it's a really good one for you. But Dapol has built on the previous Class 22 locomotive here. It's a fully new tooling, so it is made from the ground up, but their expertise in producing a similar locomotive really shows off here. Some of the tooling variations, including the different exhaust ports for the Class 21 and Class 29 with the separate power units. You've got the etched grille on the side there, which is really making itself known. The fully flush glazed windows. You've got the full cab interior, you can just see. Etched builder's plates, pre-attached as well, which is a really nice detail. But the main thing for me on this is, look at that bogie detail on there. It's fully picked out. You've got the various springs, axle boxes, sand boxes too. And to me, that really gives a great opportunity, not only to get one of these on the layout, but to maybe add a little bit of weathering as well. Just let you have another second at that. They do come pre-fitted with the head code panel lettering there, as you can see. There are a number of details that you do get to fit, and it depends on which loco you get. With the Class 29, you get all your front end piping, you get your vacuum brakes, your steam heat pipes, spare couplings in there too, and NEM couplings which fit into the NEM socket on the front. With the Class 21, they actually carried head code discs on the front, so you'd get everything I've just said and a pack of head code discs as well. So if you get a Class 21, you get that pack, and a Class 29, you get that pack. Now, Gareth asked the question I was waiting for there. Are the models more reliable than the real thing? Now, I spent a little bit at the start of the stream saying how unreliable these were in real life. And the Dapol model is completely different than that. It is totally chalk and cheese. It couldn't be more different. You've got a 5-pole motor in there, really powerful with all-wheel pickup. You've got quite a bit of weight in the chassis as well, so they can handle quite a lot of coaches or wagons on your layout. They can haul some pretty decent rates. They'll get down to second radius, and they've got a digital decoder socket in there as well. I believe it's a 21-pin socket in there. You've got space for a huge digital sound speaker, and we do sell locomotives pre-fitted with digital decoders and digital sound decoders as well. I believe they've listened and recorded one of the original power units that still survives. So it's not quite the full loco, but they've made it sound as authentic as possible. We've had one on our test track and found absolutely no issues. One of the real things that I liked was the fully controllable lights as well. You've got your headlights, your tail lights, and your head code box lights, but these are fully directional too. If you're on digital, you can use your digital decoder to control them in both directions with independent tail lights. If you're on analog, there are switches inside, and there's a full manual provided here. This is how in-depth it gets with the lights. There are 2 pages describing the lights alone, just how to get the best out of those lights and to make them fully authentic for the Class 21 or the Class 29 that you have. So going through some of the liveries, we covered the two-tone green before. We start at the BR green here, which was one of the locomotives that you could see down in London in that original livery there. Going into the green with the yellow panel, that would be more of the Scottish livery from the mid-1960s, but we're still looking at the 21 at the moment. Heading over into 29, once they were rebuilt post-1963, you did start to get some blue locomotives for a very short period. But again, one of the things I like here is just how many variations Dapol have managed to cram into this model. There's 8 locomotives that you can buy now. There's 4 Class 21s and 4 Class 29s. And they really do have all their differences. If you do want to see some real close-ups, you can check that link in the description. But just going through some of the variations you've got here, you've got the standard British Rail typeface on the end locomotive. You've got the previous 1960s style D-number typeface here. You've got the two-tone green. You've got variations in windscreen wipers. You've got the original green as well. You've got the full lot here. It does tell pretty much the full story of the class. And there you go, Gareth. That is the full information. There's 8 available. They start now at $129.15. Great question for Jonathan there as well, and a really good point, actually. This does complete a collection for a lot of people. You may think, why do I want a locomotive that spent a lot of time in its shed? Once you start seeing some of the photos of what these locos worked, where they worked, they are an incredible inspiration for a layout. You're looking at some of the most scenic lines used in the Scottish Highlands, where they'd haul short and long trains, either doubled up or on their own. You can get them running on lines such as the West Highland Railway, the line from Callander to Oban as well, running through Glencoe. Up into the northeast, you're heading up in towards Aberdeen. But if you're not a Scottish modeller, there's some really good opportunities to get them on your gritty London suburban layout too in the original liveries. So if you wanted to pair one of these up with a rake of suburban coaches in the Class 21 guys, or you wanted 2 or 3 Mark 1s heading through the Scottish Highlands, even a small freight as well, it's a great locomotive to have. And it complements so many engines that are already out there, either seen on the London suburbs in the 1960s. I mean, where do you start with that? You're looking at some of the large locomotives, including the Gresley A3s and A4s. The Oxford Rail N7 would be a great partner. The Class 26s and the Baby Deltics that were trialled down there at the same time too. Heading up into the Highlands, you've got the 26s again when they followed the North British Type 2s up. You've got the various other locomotives up there, the Class 27s. So if you've already got a Scottish diesel collection from the 60s or the early 70s, or you've got a steam and diesel collection from the east of England in the 1950s, these are an ideal partner. So, Leon, yes, they do have cab lights in there. Again, that's fully directional. You've got those in there too. It's really easy to get the body off these, by the way. It is just a selection of clips underneath that you do prise the body away. But as always, Dapol's been really helpful. They've given some great information on how to do that in the instruction sheet. But if you are struggling, do get in touch with our team there. Gareth again mentioning he's a fan of that two-tone green livery. I can't think that it's been on anything else in that style. It was quite a common livery out there, the two-tone green, but it usually was set off with the darker green at the top and the bottom. I can't think of it ever carrying this particular variation with the white stripe down the middle, other than on the Class 29. So if you do know better, do let me know in the chat and I will certainly correct that as I go through. But I think this is unique. So if you do want a bit of an unusual twist on a standard BR green livery, it's another great opportunity to get hold of one of these models as well. I'll just let you take one last look at some of the details there. Again, do just have a quick nosy at that bogie detail. And you've got the sprung buffers there as well. Some of the really fine printing and the etched number plates. You've got the TOPS data panel underneath the builder's plate there on 6112. Yep, I just answered that one for you, SLD51. They have got sprung buffers indeed. Sorry for saying that just before you put it in the chat there, but definitely caught you on that one. So the final thing about these locomotives is it really is getting to the stage now where every major diesel locomotive on the UK's railways has a super detail model in 00 scale. You can get pretty much the whole lot now, and the Class 21 and the 29 were one of the final gaps in that collection. You can get a Super Detail 37, 47, Deltic, 58, the whole lot. But there was just one or two little gaps, and this really starts to close that now. There's been a lot of people waiting for a Super Detail model of these quirky locomotives for quite a few years. Even though they were quite unreliable in real life, they've still got quite an interesting story to tell. You can run them with many different formations in quite a few interesting places. They've got some really nice livery variations in there also, and they come in at a great price for what you're getting. With the fully directional lighting, the 5-pole motor, a really good amount of weight in there too, and starting at 129.15. All 8 variations you can check out right now if you click that link in the description. But I do hope you've enjoyed taking a closer look at the 21s and the 29s this morning. As said, you've had 2 for 1 today, so a little bit of a bonus for you. But you can see how the story really does relate from the start of the 21s in 1958 to the end of the 29s in 1971. But check out more on the website. Don't forget to like our YouTube channel and subscribe as well, and also like our Facebook page for more content like this. We'll be bringing you more model focuses, more live streams, and some other little bits of different things as well. So do keep an eye on both the pages and our website as well for more great content. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. Thanks as always for some fantastic questions in the chat. And if you do want to know anything more, get in touch with our customer experience team or leave a comment below and we'll get back in touch. Otherwise, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.